Okay, hello everyone. Today I'm going to be doing a sew-along video. It's a bit of a how-to video on making my pattern, the tailor jacket. So I've had my pattern brand for a while now, and when I started off I just had 3 sizes and then I went up to 4, and I've decided I really want to expand that more to be even more inclusive. So I'm now going to go up to 8 sizes. Like before, if your size isn't covered, I can always kind of grade up and down. Sorry if you hear ruffling as well. Terry's down here and he's playing with his toys. So yeah, I wanted to be more inclusive, so I'm slowly going through all of my patterns and sizing them up. And the reason I started with this one is because it's absolutely one of my favourite patterns. I've made it up a heap of times. And yes, I'll show you what it is. It's this really nice kind of boxy square shaped jacket, little pockets on the front, a yoke detail on the back, and a pretty simple collar. It's unlined and got a button wrap here, sleeves with a cuff. So here I made it up in a linen tencel, so this is quite a soft drapey fabric. I made this up more for summer because it's quite lightweight, and I just wanted something that if I'm going to be going somewhere that's air conditioned or something light to just chuck over, so it's not going to be too hot if it's still in summer. But then I've also made it up in full-on like proper denim weight fabrics as well. This one I did buttonholes, whereas this one I did snap buttons. And yeah, I've made this up a heap of times. It's just one of my favourite jackets to make. So that's why I decided this one for my first one, because it's one of probably my favourite patterns that I offer. So yeah, I'm going to have it all sized up. It'll be available when I put this video out. So I'm kind of currently, while filming this, just in the finishing stages of testing a few of the sizes, making sure that they all fit well. I've also made all my size increments, they always have been, and I haven't changed it. They're a 10 centimeter size jump, which is on the larger size. Most brands usually do a 4 or 5 centimeter. The reason I did that is so that, as it's just me doing all the patterns and all the grading, it does take me a while. I also work full time, so it gives me a little bit, it allows me to get to bigger sizes quicker because I can grade up over 8 sizes but get to a larger range, if that makes sense. But I was thinking of doing a video explaining how to grade between sizes. So if you find maybe you're one size in the hips, one size in the waist, or sort of between sizes, how you can achieve that. So let me know if that's something you're interested in. And let's get started into sewing this jacket. So I'm sewing it up today in this lightweight denim. It's probably just like a touch heavier than your kind of traditional chambray, and it's definitely lighter than like a jean weight denim or anything. The reason I'm doing that is because I want just that denim look, but we are ending winter here, so I don't want something too heavy. And I think this jacket looks really nice made up in something a little bit softer. And yeah, so I'm going to also probably cover it with patches because I've got a heap of patches and I've been trying to find the perfect thing to put on, and sort of like denim look jacket I thought would be perfect. So I'm going to cut all the pieces out according to the cutting instructions, and I'll show you once I've done with that. Okay, my battery's dying, so I'm going to very quickly do this. So I've got the pocket pieces, so I've got 2 of those, and then the sleeve I cut a pair of as well, so there's 2 here. I cut the fabric with the wrong side together, so I've got a pair. The back yoke is cut on the fold, so that one looks like that. And the back piece is also cut on the fold, so it looks like that. The front is cut as a pair, so again I just cut that with right sides together, and then I'll go ahead and mark on, it's not as obvious on my pattern, but there's 2 little marks there for where the pocket goes, so I'll mark that on there as well. I've got the hem, which I cut one of interfacing and then one of the main fabric, and that's on the fold as well. The collar I've cut 2 on the fold and then 1 of interfacing. Cuff I've cut 2 pairs and then 2 of interfacing, and then the button wrap I've cut, the sleeve cuff I've cut one pair, not two pairs up, and interfacing, and then the button wrap I've cut one pair of, and then one of the interfacing. If you're using a really heavy fabric, you might not need interfacing, or you might just want to cut the interfacing in half, because these pieces, like the button wrap and cuff, are folded in half like that. So you might only want it to be half, depending on how big your fabric is. And I'll also mark button placements on these. And yeah, I will get started sewing, but first I'm going to charge my camera. Alright, sorry it's a bit later in the day, so it's dark. I hope the lighting isn't too bad, but I've gone ahead and fused all the pieces that need to be fused. I also ironed them in half. That's just so that it has a nice crease there. I just find it generally sews up a bit nicer and saves on ironing process later on. So I did that fold on the hem, not on the collar pieces, on the cuff, and on the button wrap. And first thing I'm going to do is grab the pocket piece, and I'm going to overlock all the edges. You can finish this in any way you like, and then I'm going to fold the top down 1 centimeter and stitch that down. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm not going to film at the machine just to save me hopping back and forth with the camera, but I'll show you that when it's finished. Alright, so I finished stitching down the top of that pocket piece. I've got the other edges overlocked, and now I'm going to stitch it onto the front. So I'm just going to top stitch it on. What I'm going to do is fold in the edges 1 centimeter. You can press this if you like, it makes it a little bit easier, and then pin that on. So I'm going to pin that on right now. Alright, so I'm going to stitch around the edge there and do the same on that side, and then get back to you with the next step. Alright, so the pockets are stitched on. What you can do if you're unsure if the pocket placement is going to suit you, you can leave this step until the end, or towards the end, when you can kind of put the jacket on and get a sense for how it's looking. I know that this placement works really well for me. So this is the placement I've marked on the pattern piece. So yeah, it's worth trying it on, especially if maybe you're a little more curvy or a little bit more flat. It might sit differently over your chest. So now we're going to move on to the back. So we've got the back yoke and the back piece, and we're going to put them with the right sides together and stitch along this edge. I'm going to stitch and then overlock it so it has a neat finish. What you can also do once you've done that is you can top stitch this if you want a little bit of a detail. I'll probably do this on this one, just for that little extra added bit of detail. So I'm going to go to the machine and do that. Alright, so the back is sewn together. So stitched it, overlocked it, and then top stitched it down. So it's got a really neat finish. Like I said, the top stitching is completely optional. I just think it makes a nice little feature at the back. Then what I'm going to do is take the front pieces, and with the right sides together, I'm going to stitch the shoulder seams. And I'm also going to overlock these at this point as well, so they have a neat finish. You can finish off all the seams with either a zigzag stitch, binding, whatever you like. I just like the overlocker because it's quick and it's easy. So yeah, shoulder seams getting done now. Alright, so the shoulders are sewn and I've overlocked them as well. So it's starting to actually look like something now. Now I'm going to insert the sleeve, so I'm just going to lay this piece flat. I like to press the shoulder seam further into the back. You can press it open if you like, or to the front. I think back just sits a bit nicer. And then I'm going to grab the sleeve. The sleeve has a notch. This notch is just there to tell you which side of the sleeve is the back. It doesn't actually match up with anything on the pattern piece. And there is a notch at the top as well. That one matches up with the shoulder. So I'm going to pin this in, matching up with right sides together, that notch, connecting the back and connecting the front of the sleeve. It's a little bit hard to kind of show on camera because it's two kind of opposing curves going together, but I'm going to stitch them together and then overlock them. Alright, so the sleeves are both sewn in, so stitched it and then overlocked it. That's what the inside looks like, and the outside right side, so it's actually starting to look like a jacket. So now I'm going to move on to the collar. The reason I do the collar now rather than the side seam is I find it's easier to insert when the garment is still flat. You can't really lay the garment out as flat like this when the side seams are sewn up. So we're going to work on the collar. So I've got both the collar pieces here, and I'm going to stitch down these edges and then clip the corners and turn it inside out and press it, leaving just this edge open. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on the machine. I might also top stitch once I turn it out the right way. Again, that's an optional step, just depending whether you want the top stitching or not. Alright, so the collar piece is ready to go. They've been stitched together, and then I've top stitched around that edge. So now I'm going to pin this onto the main body, and when I sew it on, I'm also going to be sewing a strip of bias binding, so I'll take you over to the machine to show you exactly that. But first, what I'll do is grab the body, and then I'm going to pin it on. It's going to start 1 centimeter away from each edge, and that's because the button wrap is going to go on there, so that needs to be kept separate for that. So I'm going to pin this on now. Okay, so I've pinned the neck in, and now I'm going to stitch it on, and I'm going to place some bias binding. I'm just going to unfold this edge and stitch right in that channel, and that is still including that 1 centimeter seam allowance, so I'm going to stitch that along. You can do this in 2 steps if you like. You can baste the neck piece on first and then put the bias binding, or if you want to finish it in a different way, you could just overlock the edge or finish it another way. You'll just need to fold it down and stitch it down, because the bias binding helps hold it down, kind of works in like a facing sort of way. So I'm just going to take it slowly, especially around this first curve. That can be a bit tricky. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to line this up. There we go. So hopefully you can see that on camera, that I'm stitching in the ditch there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for the whole neckline. You can also pin this all in prior. I just like doing it as I go. This is just how I'm used to sewing it. You can definitely cut the bit of bias and pre-pin it all in. And like I said, you want to still be keeping that 1 centimeter seam allowance, so the bias binding isn't going to line up with the edge of the fabric. I'm using like a 12mm bias, so the fold over is only about 1/2 centimeter, so there's like another 1/2 centimeter there. Alright, so that is stitched on. Now what I'm going to do is trim away this excess fabric. Pretty much I'm just going to trim back to where the bias binding seam is. If you're using a really heavy weight fabric, you might want to trim some layers shorter and some layers a little bit longer, just so that it sits a bit flatter. There's not like a ledge of fabric underneath the bias. And obviously be careful you're only stitching through the seam allowance and not into any piece of the garment. Now that is done, what I'm going to do is fold it over and just stitch along this edge. If you find it's puckering or anything, what you can do is take it over to the iron first, just so it has a really neat finish. So yeah, I'm just going to stitch along the edge of that bias. So yeah, the neckline is all done. It's all been stitched in neatly. You can press this down if you like. We'll go over it with just a bit of steam so it kind of holds its place, but it should naturally want to fold in the right place. And that's what it looks like on the inside. So now we're going to sew up the side seams. So this is super simple. All you need to do is match up the underarm. We're going to stitch all the way up the arm and then all the way down the side. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on the machine. I'm going to stitch and then overlock. Alright, so that side seam is all sewn up. That's what it's looking like on the wrong side, and on the right side as well. So definitely starting to look like a jacket. Now I'm going to work on the cuffs. So with the cuffs, what I'm going to do is fold it in half, and then I'm just going to stitch down this edge. Once that's done, I'm going to attach it to the body. I'm going to attach it so that it is right side to the wrong side, like so, and then I'm going to stitch along there. Then I will fold it up and fold this edge in and stitch it down. So I'm going to stitch this bit and then attach this onto here, and then I'll show you the next step before I finish it so that you can kind of see how it all goes together. Alright, so this is stitched on here. So what I'm going to do is fold this down. I'm going to turn the sleeve right side out. So it should look something like that. And then what we're going to do is fold this up. That's where having that pre-crease is handy, because you already know what length it needs to be folded to. And then we're going to fold in 1 centimeter so that it hides that original seam. We're going to stitch all the way along that edge. If you've got a really thick fabric, you might want to cut away some of the bulk, especially in like these areas where there's quite a few layers. Obviously don't cut into the seam, but if we cut away a bit of that bulk, it just kind of helps it to sit a little bit flatter. So I'm going to go ahead and pin that all in. Alright, so that's all pinned on. I'm going to go stitch it. If you have really thick fabric and you're finding this will be too bulky, you can do it kind of the opposite way. So you attach it right side to right side, so this seam's already neatly finished, and just finish the other edge with like overlocking or something, and then fold that under, and then do a ditch stitch or a top stitch to hold that hem in place. I've done that before when I'm making this out of like a really heavy denim or something. I just like this finish because it does give that neat finish on the inside and the outside. So it does mean if like I want to turn the cuffs up or anything, it's got a really neat finish. We're going to do that same finish on the front hem and the bottom hem. So again, if like the jacket flaps open, it has like a really neat finish. That's also why I like doing the binding around the neck, because it kind of, yeah, it looks a little bit neater than overlocking or a zigzag stitch. But I'm going to go ahead and do this on both sleeves. Alright, so the cuffs are done, so it's all neat on the inside and the outside. So I've done that to both sleeves. Now what we're going to do is work on the front button wrap. So we're going to grab this piece, and similar to the cuff, we're going to put it on the inside with the right side facing the wrong side. We're going to stitch down here. You want to be careful to make sure you're leaving 1 centimeter at the top and you're not catching that collar. So the 1 centimeter seam should start just where that collar finishes, go all the way down, and then the exact same thing as the cuff, we're going to fold the edge in and top stitch that down. So I'm going to go ahead and attach this on first, and then I'll show you the next step, because we'll also need to finish off this top edge. So this will be sitting 1 centimeter above the neck edge, and we'll fold it round and stitch down, but I'll stitch this on first to show you what that looks like. Alright, so I've stitched that first bit down, On this side I've gone to the next step, which is to fold it over and then stitch along the top here and then clip into the corner. So what that looks like for the piece when it's just loose is just folding it along. I just fold it along that crease line that I made with the iron. So fold it in half, and then I'm just going to stitch along that edge there and then clip into the corner. By doing that, I'll be able to turn it inside out, or right side around I should say, like so. Again, if you're using a heavier fabric or bulky fabric, you may want to cut away some of this seam allowance. And then I'm going to fold this edge under, so you can see there's quite a bit of bulk there. So luckily this is a lightweight fabric, it's not really affecting it too much, but if you are using a heavier fabric, definitely cut that away, or finish this seam by putting this piece on the front first and folding it under and then stitching it, rather than having all the seam allowance creating bulk. So I'm just going to pin that in place, and I'm just going to pin all the way down the front, so the whole front, just like the cuff, is going to be folded in so that we have a really neat finish on the front of the jacket, and it means on the inside we have this really neat finish as well. There's no overlocking, no binding, nothing showing, it's all really nice and neat. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to this side as well, and then we can move on to the hem. Alright, so the button wrap is sewn down, so it's been top stitched down and looks nice and neat on the inside as well. So now we're going to attach the hem piece, and this is done in pretty much the exact same way, so I'm not going to show too much of it. I'm just going to stitch it on to right side to the wrong side of the garment, just like before, and we'll leave 1 centimeter at the end there on each side, and then we'll fold it over, stitch it down together, fold it up, and then top stitch it on. So literally the exact same as the button wrap piece. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then the last step is buttons. Alright, so the hem is all done on that one, all neat on the inside and on the outside there. Like I said, just the exact same process as doing the button wrap. So yeah, it's all done. What I'm going to do is just add the buttons. So that's the final step. I'm just going to use the placement that's marked on the pattern piece. I'm going to just add some snap buttons, but you can add regular buttons as well and just do buttonholes, whatever works. And I'm probably also going to add some patches to this one too, and then I will insert some footage of me wearing it. Like I said, this is one of my favorite patterns. It's just a really nice basic boxy shape jacket, cropped jacket. I like it for summer because it's sort of something I can wear if I'm going to be inside where it's air conditioned and just want that little extra bit of layer. Yeah, so thank you for watching. Hopefully you liked this video and found it helpful to follow along with making the pattern. I will link the pattern down below. Like I've said, this is the first one that I have resized from the patterns I have. So yes, hopefully you enjoyed it. You can go check out the pattern, and yeah, thank you for watching, and leave a comment, like, subscribe, check out Instagram, all that good stuff, and yeah, see you.